Hello. You'll have to excuse me in this video because my voice is so. It's come and go. So, one moment. I'm drinking some hot tea. So I taught a 5:30 class, and this class is brought to you by my 6 a.m. time slot that did not book, and then I will have 3 more classes. I saw a post on Facebook that inspired this video. This video is meant for anyone who knows a friend or a family member or a loved one who is going through grief. This video is do's and don'ts of what to say to someone who has had a miscarriage or a loved one pass away. Let me back up to before I had all these losses. When I was in college, I took a class called Counseling Depression. And in that class, there was a friend of mine who had had 10 miscarriages and only 1 healthy child at the time. She's now the mom of 3 healthy children. But she was taking the class Counseling Depression. Oh, Danny's got a suggestion for me in the chat box. But she was taking the class Counseling Depression because she wanted to know, because it's a biblical counseling class about like how to use the Bible to help people and stuff. And she wanted to know like how to move forward and be okay and not depressed after having had 10 miscarriages. It's kind of like can be hard to find hope or purpose or understand why this is happening, right? Understand what's going on. So at the time when I was in college, I was taking the class thinking, I want to know what to say when my friend tells me she's had 10 miscarriages because I haven't been in those shoes. I don't know the right thing to say. I don't know what the right thing is to say. So today, I come to you as a different person. I have had 4 miscarriages, and one of those I count as a stillbirth. It's still technically a miscarriage, but I had to give birth at 16 weeks. And one of those wasn't acknowledged by the doctors, but I was indeed pregnant, and they just called it a late period because it was an early miscarriage. But I still believe that was a child, even though it was just 5 weeks along. I also lost my grandfather a couple of years ago. I lost my mom a little over a year ago, and I just lost my grandma. So I saw a post on Facebook, and it had a list of things that people say to someone who has had a miscarriage. I don't have it pulled up. Give me just a second. There's a lot of ridiculous things that people say. And a couple of them have been so hurtful to me that I haven't mentioned them, but this post where everybody's leaving in the comments what hurtful things people said to them, it kind of empowered me to talk about this because miscarriage is kind of different than when you lose a loved one, because when you lose your mom, all the relatives come. They all come to your funeral. They give you a hug. They say, I'm so sorry. I remember her. She was great because of this and that. Or I'm her cousin. Nice to meet you. I'm so sorry for your loss. Here's a card. Here's a hug. People are a lot more supportive when you can see and know the person who died. But when you have a miscarriage, it's kind of like, oh, you're going to tell people? You're going to put that on social media? I mean, sorry for your loss, but like, you'll have more kids. At least it wasn't really a person. That's what this post said. The first one it starts off with is, at least it wasn't actually a baby, right? That's what this post is. At least it wasn't actually a baby. And a lot of people are sharing in the comments, at least you can get pregnant. At least you know you can get pregnant, At least you weren't further along. At least you have healthy other children, At least At least you're young, you still have plenty of time to have more kids. Now, let's fill it in with if it was a different person, because each individual pregnancy is an individual person, right? And if you were to say, like, oh, your mom died, well, like, you're still young. Like, at least you can find another mother figure. At least you have a stepmom. At least you have an aunt. Do you see how that's ridiculous to say to someone who knows that person? Because to the mom, that's an individual person that died. That's a loss. And so to say, there's other humans in the world, get over it, is wrong. And if you haven't gone through a loss, you don't understand that. So I'm going to go back and forth between my do's and don'ts, because I don't want to just give don't, and then finally get to the positives. So a lot of times, the only thing that you can say is, I'm sorry for your loss. When I finally put on Facebook, months and months after my first miscarriage, when I finally mentioned that I had a miscarriage on Facebook, a friend wrote, I'm sorry for your loss. And I cried my eyes out because someone acknowledged that I had a loss. And it's real. Another thing that was comforting and helpful is when someone identifies with you and someone says, I had a miscarriage too. I went through a grieving process too. I felt like I was crazy too. I was crying my eyes out and didn't know when it was going to stop too. So you feel like, oh my gosh, this person identifies with me. I'm not crazy. Grief is okay. It's okay to grieve someone that you've never seen. It's okay to grieve someone that was there and now is gone. Sorry about the tears, but sad video. Topic. When I had my first miscarriage, I was a newlywed. And I told everyone when I found out I was pregnant, except for on social media. I told all my coworkers and all the kids at the daycare that I worked at. And that was hard because some of the kids at the daycare also went to the elementary school I worked at. And some of them told other kids. And then when I had a miscarriage, they were asking me how my pregnancy was going. I had to say, the baby died. And so this random kid came up to me when I was at my elementary school. I didn't even know this kid. And they said, oh, your baby died. And kids are so innocent. They don't mean wrong by it, right? But I had a coworker who said, it's kind of like Darwin's like survival of the fittest, that like, you lose one fetus and then later you get pregnant with another one. It's just like nature's way of like getting rid of the not as good ones so you can have the better ones or whatever. That's not comforting when you lose a child. Let's think like if someone gave birth and had a child and they died, and you tried saying to them, like, you can get pregnant again. It's survival of the fittest. Maybe that kid wasn't good enough. Maybe that kid had some problem you didn't know about. That's not comforting. That's not helpful. So also another coworker, when I was going through that loss, she walked in on me when I was having a moment by myself at work in our shared office area. I was crying my eyes out, and she walked in and she said, don't cry about it. Don't cry. You're going to get pregnant again. You're going to have other kids. Stop crying about it. This is a person that's never had a miscarriage before. Each individual pregnancy is a person. Also, when I got pregnant again and I lost the baby super early at like 5 weeks along, the doctors in the ER said, we're counting it as an early period or a late period, even though the pregnancy hormone was present in my blood, but not in my urine, because I had, I was early on so quickly that went out of my body. So then in telling my husband that I wasn't really pregnant, that it was just a late period, then my husband told my mom and his mom that it wasn't really a pregnancy. It wasn't really a miscarriage. I felt robbed of being able to grieve that child or name that child. I felt like Okay, well, the doctors and my husband and my mom and mother-in-law say it's not really a kid, so I guess I don't have to be sad. So don't rob someone of grieving. It's okay to grieve. Recently, someone said when I mentioned that I had to work for VIPKID after finding out my baby didn't have a heartbeat, after having a miscarriage, after finding out my mom died, I still had to work for VIPKID. And someone said, oh, well, I could never do that because I'm too close to my mom. Who said I wasn't close to my mom? I'd have to work. Sorry. So be careful. Sorry. Be careful with your words because some people are sensitive. Sorry, I'm not trying to cry in this video. Sorry. This is a sad video. Feel free to click off. Another one you should not say is when are you gonna finally get over it? I don't know. You know. Sorry. When are you finally gonna get over it? Grief comes in waves. You may be fine for a long time, and then it comes back, and you're reminded, and you're sad again, and it's okay to be sad. Sorry. So don't let someone treat you like you're wrong for being sad. Also, I've seen posts on social media, Facebook, about people saying, I feel bad because every year on this date, I would be sad, and this year, I'm not crying, and I feel guilty for it. Grief is a mystery. There's a cycle. There's coping, there's acceptance, and you can get to the point where you're not forgetting that person, you're not hurting, you're not doing something against their memory by being okay, by not crying. When you get to the point where you're coping and you are acknowledging the loss but no longer crying over it, you don't have to feel guilty for not being overwhelmed with grief 2-3 years after it happened, 1 month after it happened, 1 week after it happened. Grief is a mystery. It comes in waves, and everybody handles it differently, and there's no right way to grieve. There's no wrong way to grieve. Maybe I should change that. There's no wrong way to grieve. There's a lot of ways that are just fine. Sorry to say there's no right way. There's no one way to grieve is what I meant. Sorry, I worded that wrong. Some people I see post on social media all the time about their loved one that died. And that is okay. It's okay to keep posting about your husband who passed away or your stillbirth that happened. And if you have friends that are too uncomfortable to hear you talk about it, then that's not true friendship. They are welcome to leave your social media because that is your personal account that you can talk about it. Same goes with this video. Feel free to click off or even give a thumbs down if you really feel that's very important to you. And you have that right. People who have not gone through grief don't know how to comfort someone who's grieving other than, I'm sorry for your loss. Would you like a hug? Can I bring you a meal? This is on my list of do's. Here's a card that has cash in it. Here's a card that has a gift card in it. When my mom passed away, I felt like nobody cared except for the one lady from church that gave me a card with money in it. It didn't have to do with the amount of money. It had to do with the fact that she was showing me that she cared. And when I lost Gabriel, people from church brought food. Friends scheduled play dates and listened to me talk about the loss. Just being there, you don't have to have the right words. Having lost a lot of people, sometimes I say, I wish the right words existed, but the best I know how to say is, I'm sorry for your loss. And I'm here if you need a friend. And I've had losses too. That doesn't mean I know exactly how you're feeling in your situation, because every loss is different, right? But I'm here for you. My aunt recently posted that, she lost her mother. And let me take a sip of tea. This was very difficult for her. She was one of the main caretakers for my grandma. She was very close with her mother. And people were texting her and saying, we're rejoicing with you. And she put on Facebook, stop texting me that you're rejoicing with me that my mom died, because I'm not happy about it. I'm crying my eyes out. Leave me alone. So, even though you may be happy that someone's in heaven, even though you may be happy that someone's suffering is over, it doesn't mean you need to say that to someone who isn't happy about it. So I warned my brother before we went to the funeral. I said, don't say you're happy about grandma going to heaven, because Aunt Connie, she's not ready to hear that right now. She's still sad about it. So just say, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for your loss sounds cliche, but it's better than saying something offensive. All right, I'm going to read what Danny said. Danny said, hi, love. Don't tell them not to be angry. That's my feeling. Exactly. Don't tell someone not to cry. Don't tell someone not to be angry. Don't tell someone not to question God. God can handle questioning. Oh, Danny said, yeah, ugh. When my dad died, a girl told me not to be angry. Well, anger is a stage of grief. Yeah, it's okay, Evelyn. Emotions and pain need to leave the body that way. You don't want to hold it inside. Someone needs to hear this today. I also feel guilt for not hurting as much as I do. Thanks for saying this, Evelyn. Another good point. Got to wake the kids up for school. Yeah. I never thought saying at least they're not in pain anymore was being bad. Makes sense though. Well, when it's someone who genuinely is going to miss their mom, they might not be ready to hear that. I'm not saying that's not the right words to say. It's just like each individual person, sometimes that might not be what they're ready to hear. Also, I got an invitation to go to the hospital and release balloons for having lost Gabriel. And I searched my heart and I'm not ready. It's a year later. I'm not ready to do that. I'm currently pregnant. I don't want the stress and the sadness of releasing that balloon. I went to my friend's daughter's funeral and they had a balloon release, and I was crying my eyes out before the balloon release, and I had a horrible migraine. I had to leave the funeral. When I saw the balloons, I couldn't handle it. It's so crazy because something that can be therapeutic for one person can be too much for another. Sorry. And I'm going to teach in 6 minutes here. I go crying my eyes out. The last thing I wanted to say is the most hurtful thing that a Christian lady told me. It sounds really spiritual, but it's not in the Bible. Please do not say this to anyone. It's the most harmful thing someone said to me in loss. That God did it to bring himself glory. Let me explain. I've been to Bible college. I've heard people say stuff like this. People like saying things that make them sound spiritual, but it's not biblical. It's not from the Bible, and it's not about God. God is glorified by all the angels in heaven. If we don't praise him and glorify him, the rocks will cry out. God doesn't suffer for lack of glory, and he doesn't go around killing people and babies and ending pregnancies to bring himself glory. That's not how God operates. When Cain killed Abel, God was grieved by that death. He said, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. When Lazarus died, Jesus wept. When someone dies, God is saddened along with us. He feels our pain. He doesn't like it when we're in pain. He feels sad too. He's not feeling glorified by that. So stop telling people that God killed their child to bring himself glory, because that's not true. That's not true. Don't say that. God's not like that. God is a loving God. And all the days ordained for us were written in his book before any of them came to be. So the length of time each of us lives, whether it's short or long, it's already written down by God in his book. But he doesn't go around smiting people to bring himself glory. That's not how God operates. So stop trying to sound spiritual and telling people unfactual things like that, because that very much damaged my spiritual walk with God, because that made me say, well, then I don't understand who God is, because that's not the God I've been serving all this time. I've searched the Bible high and low. It doesn't have that statement in it that God kills people to bring himself glory. So that's just not factual. I have class in 3 minutes. I hope you have a lovely day. Sorry for making a sad video, but I know somebody maybe needed this. Have a great day. Bye.